In this lesson, we're going to talk about piping a downstream key. Now, what's important to keep in mind is that this lesson is all about best practices. So let's get started. First thing, we're going to add a couple of nodes. I'm just going to separate them just a little bit here. And as always with our last node, we're going to come down to our LUT, to our RE. There we go. Very nice. Now what I want to do is to create a look. So let's just create a black and white look with our second node. What I'm going to do is simply just navigate down to our saturation, just pull the saturation out all together. Now one way that we can do this key is to key from the source and pass it by the look node. We're going to right click and we're going to navigate down to add a parallel node. And what we're now going to do is select this node here, come on over to our qualifier. I'm simply going to navigate up to the window. I'm going to click somewhere right around here. Now you'll notice that when I select it, nothing really happens. So let's see exactly what's happening. Now keep in mind, with the way that I have things set up right now, what I'm looking at is the output of my entire node chain. So if I want to see what's going on a specific node, I can simply navigate right over here to the highlight parameter and I turn it on. You'll notice that the qualifier is only adjusting right over here. It's only choosing right over here, a little bit in his nostril, a little bit up here, and his tie. Now what's important to keep in mind is that Resolve's keyer was originally designed for linear images, but a lot of colorists key directly from log source so that it works most of the time, I'll say. All right, so what we're going to do here is I'm just going to delete that altogether, and we're going to keep this all set up the way that we have it, because a better practice is to actually key from a different node stream altogether. So to call up another source to create another node stream, we're simply going to add a source. Once that source is there, I'm going to right click and we're going to add a corrector node. And what we're going to do is just pipe into this corrector node like such. What I now need to do is I need to convert the color space of this node. Now you might be thinking, oh, okay, Kev, perfect. You can just copy your LUT here and you can paste it here, but we're actually not going to do that. The reason being is that you'll get a cleaner key using the color space transform effect rather than a LUT. Cleaner math and a non-destructive transform. So where do we find this effect? Well, what I'm going to do is navigate right up here to the Open Effects tab, and I'm simply going to punch in color. And you'll see there's our color space transform effect. I'm going to take it, drag it, and drop it down onto our shot. Now you will notice that with highlight turned on, nothing has happened when I've applied that effect to this shot. You'll notice that we have a few parameters we're going to need to get in and adjust. Now you might be thinking that you're going to need to adjust the input color space and the input gamma, but in this case I do not. Why? Well, if I navigate up to File, I come down to my project settings and I come into the color management parameter, you'll see that the timeline's color space is already set to RE log C. So if I come back here, you'll see that we are using the timeline for the input color space and the input gamma. Perfect. What we're then going to do is navigate right down here, and this is going to be converted to Rec 709. The gamma is going to be gamma 2.4, and I'm just going to set the tone mapping method to be simple. Now I'm just going to close the Open Effects window because before we move on, I want to come in and just do our offset correction here just to give us a little bit more of a balanced look. Why? Better separation equals a better key. All right, so we're now ready to get in and do that key. Now you might be thinking that I'm going to do it on this node, but we're not. I'm going to add another node to do the key on. Now why? Well, you'll remember in previous lessons when we got in and we applied, for example, the lookup table, and we went in to do things like to pull a key, that key is actually happening before all of the other operations on the node. So if I was to get in on this node and to do the key, we're actually right back to where we were before in our previous example. So this is why I want to do the key here on this node, so we already have everything baked together and we can apply the key on top of all of that. Now what I'm going to do again with the qualifier is I'm going to navigate right up to roughly the same space. You'll see again, I'm just going to turn this off and on again. We're going to come to right about here and I'm going to select right there, and right now you'll see we've already gotten a way better key than we had before. A couple little things happening here that I do need to tweak, like for example saturation. We're just going to set the low to be 0. This area that we are keying is like super thin, so let's just stretch that right out about there, and we can adjust the center point after the fact. All right, so what do we do now? We're going to need to patch this information back into the main stream to make use of this key. However, we're going to need another node to do this. What I'm going to do is just add another node, and we'll take the key information that we just utilized or we just created, and I want to send that key information to this node. So let's do this. I'm going to grab this output. Remember, this is the RGB output information. This is the mat information. And because I want to send that mat information to this node here, we're going to take it and we're just going to patch it directly in. Now, as soon as I do, you're now going to immediately see that that key information is going to this node. Now, I'm just going to turn the highlight parameter off. And on this node, what we're going to do is just make an offset change to about there. Now, the only problem that we have here is that we've actually keyed a little bit too much, and we can see a little bit too much of that offset change that we just made. Now, what I can do is simply just go back to the qualifier, adjust that hue, and as you can see, it's very easy to get a clean key this way. Super quick and super simple.